have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist.
Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Fear itself. Where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
My prepper brothers and sisters, you've arrived at the bunker. Grab a cup of joe, a stout tea, or maybe your favorite adult beverage. This is the prepper's place for open discussion on whatever the hell we want. Brought to you whatever the hell way we want. This is the new format of Top's Bunker. So sit down, kick back, post up, relax, and welcome to the bunker.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Military-industrial complex.
And we as a people will get to the promised land.
We will make America strong again, proud again, safe again. We will make America great again.
Preppers, survivalists, off-gridders, homesteaders, and the like. Welcome to Top's Bunker, a podcast for preppers. Leave a voicemail to get on show, speakpipe.com/tops, or use the live message option on our Facebook group, Tops Bunker. Email us at shtf@topsbunker.com or visit the site, topsbunker.com. I want to thank y'all for joining us. We've got a great show for you tonight. As y'all know from our last show, we got two new hosts that will be joining Top's Bunker going forward. Two guys that you may already know, Jeremy and Buddy, have been an integral part of bringing back this show. Well, tonight will be their debut as hosts along with myself. So I want to tell you all a little bit about these guys before we get started. First up is Buddy. Now, Buddy brings a wealth of experience with a nonstop mindset and commitment to readiness and preparedness. Since 2008, Buddy has been immersed in the world of preparedness, driven by a journey that spans 26 years of military service. As a combat veteran, he has faced the crucible of adversity firsthand, gaining invaluable insights that now inform his role as a preparedness consultant and instructor. Raised on a homestead and farm, Buddy's formative years instilled in him a deep appreciation for self-sufficiency and practical skills. His combat experience further solidified his understanding of resilience in challenging environments. From disaster search and rescue operations to consulting in the preparedness space, Buddy's expertise is grounded in real-world application and a passion for imparting crucial knowledge. Beyond his professional endeavors, Buddy is dedicated to teaching and empowering others through preparedness classes and consultations. Whether preparing for potential disasters or navigating the complexities of sustainability, Buddy's guidance is rooted in a profound commitment to equipping individuals and communities with the tools they need to survive and thrive. He's also a master gardener who studied at Oklahoma University, Langston University, Texas A&M, and Redlands, where he received a science degree for sustainable agroecosystems technology. He's fluent in greenhouse management, container gardening, hydroponic and aquaponic gardening, vermiculture, soil science, composting, agricultural ecosystem sustainment practices, and agricultural marketing. Buddy is going to be a great addition to our show. Now there's Jeremy, whose life story reads like a testament to strength, service, and a steadfast commitment to readiness. Jeremy's journey into preparedness began at a young age, nurtured by the commitment of a military family where readiness wasn't just a concept, but a way of life. With 25 years of military service, including combat experience, Jeremy's expertise is grounded in the realities of adversity and survival. Beyond his distinguished military career, Jeremy plays a crucial role as a Department of Defense independent contractor, providing essential training to Special Operations Forces candidates in exercises such as Robin Sage and Grey Knight. His dedication to preparing the next generation of elite warriors reflects his deep-seated belief in readiness and resilience. Jeremy's family history is that of courage and service. Both of his parents are Vietnam veterans. His grandfathers, great-uncle, grandmother, and great-aunt all served in World War II. His great-grandfather's bravery and ultimate sacrifice during the overthrow of dictator Rafael Trujillo in the Dominican Republic further underscores Jeremy's lineage of insurgency and rebellion. You can say it's in his blood. Raised by a single mother who served through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, Jeremy learned early on the importance of a prepared mindset. He is fluent in gardening, preserving meat and skins, and generally living off the land. Outside of his professional life, Jeremy finds joy in the great outdoors, including hunting, fishing, ultra running, riding motorcycles, and cherishing time with his grandkids. His ultimate dream? Building a homestead and family compound for his entire family to survive and thrive through the years to come. Both Buddy and Jeremy are bringing their A game to the show so that we can all learn from them and be better prepper survivalists. Tonight, we're talking about some of the reasons why people are prepping. Do you know what you're prepping for? Let's talk about that tonight. Got a great show for you tonight. I want to welcome Buddy and Jeremy. How are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
Doing well.
So tonight we'll be discussing what prepper survivalists are prepping for.
All right. Well, with the uncertain times we have out there, it's kind of hard to pick one event, to actually try to prep for. I look at it pretty much as a probable event or inevitable event. We've had a few things like February 22nd when the communications went down nationwide. There's a few things that's happened already that we can check off and really look at how you can do an action report on it to see exactly, how well we did. I failed miserably with that one.
Let me stop you there and ask you a question. What is an after action report? What are you talking about when you say that?
Okay, it's a military term. I think it pretty much came out of the military. We call it an AAR, after action report. And basically, it's an event that happens afterwards. You grade yourself basically on how you did. And it looks like what was supposed to happen, what actually happened, and what can I do better? What can I sustain? What did I do well and sustain on that? And the communication that went down on the 22nd was a failure, and it got me rewired to alternate means of communication with friends and family. So I've been hot on that since that event. So
what event was that?
That was the communications that went down, cell phones.
Right, yeah.
They said the satellites went out. AT&T came out and said they fat fingered something.
Is that right?
Yeah. Whatever, they're going to say whatever, but to me, with all this stuff that's happening out there, there's a lot of hacks happening. I'm pretty sure that a lot of things that are happening out there aren't accidents. We've had too many accidents lately. There's a wide range, a wide variety of things to prep for. And I can go through a list of things that, my top things to prep for. But, I want to say that I came to the conclusion of all this, because there's a million things you can start prepping for, but after I did what's called an area intelligence study, and it basically it chops down, and once you get your area study done and you do a good job with it, you can kind of tell your immediate threats. And I prioritize. There's immediate threat. Something in the military we talked about, you have different size of targets or distance of targets. You got a 300-meter target, 200-meter target, 100, 50, and so on. So the closer target's the one that's going to get you quicker than what the one is out further away. So I kind of prioritize my preps that way. And I do want to say that I'll use the word preps and prepping. I don't like those terms because of the stigmatism that it brings.
I love them. I love those terms. So
yeah,
we're different on that.
Yeah, I like to use preparedness. I like that term better, but I don't know if it makes me sound like I'm intelligent or whatever.
A lot of people are using the word preparedness, and I do occasionally too. But that's where it's kind of going, because I think of the stigmatism that's behind it.
Yeah, and I read a statistic the other day that man, there's over 9 million, and that's what they can tell, and 9 million Americans that are actually out there prepping in some fashion or another. And it's not just, the crazy conspiracy, tin hat guy out there. The mega rich are out there preparing as well. So,
That's right.
they're doing bunkers. They have security teams and bunkers. And
Man, wouldn't it be nice to have like a shit ton of money and just be able to like build like the greatest, just most awesome prepper bunker? Just think about that. I mean, we should do an episode just on that. Your wildest dream would be,
Oh
Yeah,
my God, I agree.
Yeah, there's plenty of if money was no object, believe me, I would have my life wouldn't change at all. It'd actually get better in a bunker. So but that's another episode though. But so anyhow, I like the preparedness. I like the preparedness word better than prepping, but I'll use both. Anyhow, so I think the biggest, my number one concern, especially with the election coming up and just the craziness going on out there, I'll go through my list. They're interchangeable depending on the day, and as I work my area study, which is a fluid document, I'll go through and I'll have I'll move them around a little bit, but I think a top three would be basically a grid down situation, where you're total grid down. So how am I going to prepare for, when I say total grid down, loss of power, no Wi-Fi, your whole life, all your modern comforts are gone.
Yeah, just think about what happens when you're at home. It's 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening. Maybe you just had dinner. Maybe you're making dinner. Maybe you're sitting down watching some TV, something, and all of a sudden all the lights go out. It happens to us all the time, right? I mean, especially in Texas, it happened constantly. And here, I'm out in the woods, and it's happened to us a couple times. One of those times that it happened to us here at our new place, we were out for, I think, 15 straight hours. But when it goes out, when it actually happens and all the lights go out and your internet goes out, your phones aren't charged, you're not prepared for it. When it happens, you're thinking in your mind, oh, it's going to come back on in 5 minutes. No big deal. It'll be on a couple minutes. They'll fix whatever problem was, probably a tree hit a branch, whatever it is. And you wait. And then you wait. And then an hour goes by, 2 hours go by, 3 hours go by. You're calling the electric company. You're like, hey, we're going to report an outage. Yeah, we heard about that. We got trucks. We're bringing in trucks from here and there, and we got something happen, blah, blah, blah. You don't know. Now think about that if it happens for 48 hours, 72 hours, 7 days. What if you're out for 3 weeks? This is a terrifying thing for most people.
No, it's an actual concern. My power actually went off today. We'll have, and it's weird because it's really never done this before, but we'll have a few hours a day. Well, I'm not going to say every day, but it's happening more often where it goes out for 45 minutes, 30 minutes, 20 minutes. I lost it for 20 minutes today, and so immediately I switch over to my phone and I go to the grid down in the power company's site to look and see, what's going on. Has anybody reported one? And as soon as people started to report it in my area, it comes back on. So, whatever it may be. But yeah, you're right. People, they're not prepared for it. And, you take somebody's Wi-Fi, especially the younger generations, Wi-Fi away from them. Wow. It throws them out of whack, So yeah, the grid down situation is more probable in my area, more likely to happen. So it's in my top three. Now, civil unrest is starting to pop up. It's starting to with the election coming up and some things going on in the world. Civil unrest is one of those things where I'm starting to prepare for that more and more, because you're going to get the grid down situation with a civil unrest. You're going to, you might have to defend your home. You might have to defend your family. It's just, it's something that you need to, keep your head on a swivel and really pay attention to. And how you pay attention to it is you watch your news, the local news. You have a network where you can get information from, maybe your neighbors or, maybe you know a policeman in your area, or a sheriff or something, somebody in the know that can help you, hey, and you talk on a regular basis, and you're basically collecting intelligence on your area. And I go back to the area intelligence study. But the civil unrest is a very probable, especially after the election. You never know. I'll keep that to myself for right now. But I think that's another one that's going to be a hot item the closer we get to the election.
I think on a civil unrest situation, depending on how big it is, how close you are to it, how it's affecting your actual social area, one of the things that you have to remember is that first responders are not going to be available for you. They're going to be dealing with the civil unrest. And if it gets really bad, they're going to just leave it, and they're going to go take care of their own family, their own people. So in a lot of cases, you may not get help that you might need, especially if you have some kind of a medical emergency. You might not be able to get the help you need, but you're definitely not going to be able to get any police anywhere near you. They're not going to show up. It's just not going to happen.
And that's something you need to know in part of your area study. I keep going back to that. It's a smart way to prep. I mean, you can either put a blindfold on and play pin the tail on the donkey with, the different things you're prepping for, or you can, get in there and research stuff and find the likely stuff and maybe not waste your money on a lot of stuff that, is not as probable as what it could be, other things are. What you have to ask yourself, what is the response time of the emergency services, police, fire, IMSA people? What is the response time in your area?
I'll give you an example. I was in Kansas City last year, and it's a very violent city. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There's some pretty bad. The cops are on their game all the time. And I was one of the buildings that we were building, an alarm went off. I was closest. So I went to just go check it out. So I get down there, I find the security guard. I'm like, hey, alarms are going off. We need to go look at this. So we go inside with our flashlights, me and this guy. He's not prepared at all. I've got my firearm, of course. And we're coming through these dark hallways, and it's a construction site. And all of a sudden he goes around a corner and he starts screaming at somebody who's standing there that I can't see. So I come around the corner, and this guy comes running out of one of the rooms. He's hiding in there, and he's got tools in his hand, and they're up in the air like a weapon. I pull my gun out. I tell him to hit the floor. He does the right thing, and he hits the floor, and the security guy puts cuffs on him. Okay. We immediately call the police. Hour and a half later, they show up. Hour and a half. We're sitting here holding this guy who just basically tried to attack us for an hour and a half, waiting for police to show up.
Imagine if he did have a gun and you got shot. Let's say he shot you in the leg or hit you in the arm.
Right.
And you're sitting there bleeding. Okay. And you're bleeding out. I mean, what are you going to do? Do you have the first aid? You have your, an IFAC with you, or some first aid gear? You have a tourniquet with you? These are things you think about, and people, they overlook, the first aid part of it. So, and then everybody's like, oh, well, I'll just call the ambulance. Well, what is the response time for your ambulance to get there while you're bleeding out? I mean, how many minutes does it take if you got a femoral artery bleed to totally bleed out? These are things that you need to know and you need to prepare for. And, getting some first aid training from somewhere, basic stop the bleed class, how to put on a tourniquet, how to stop a bleed, how to stuff a wound. These are things you need to know. And, wow, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that aren't prepared for that. They think, oh, I'm just going to pick up my cell phone that maybe or may not work in a different situation. And then, they're going to, want somebody else to save the day for them. And honestly, nobody's coming to save you in certain situations.
That's right.
So you're on your own.
So you got grid down, you got civil unrest. What else are you thinking about?
Natural disasters is something that always is up there on my list. I happen to live in Tornado Alley, so we're always prepared for that. It's actually, we probably are complacent now with it. It's where we grab a beer and some popcorn and go out and watch it. So,
that's awesome.
But I just came off a vacation where I was down in the Gulf and was running from a hurricane. So luckily it didn't come close, but we did the right thing because we're not coasters. So we decided, well, let's move inland a little bit and, continue the vacation. So, so yeah, severe droughts, wildfires, man, that's crazy. I mean, do you have in your truck or in your vehicle, do you have a fire blanket, or in your kit, in your bug out bag?
Really prevalent for people on the West Coast. I mean, they get a lot of fires out there.
Yeah. I mean, central in the plains, man, we had some terrible ones, and about this time of year, it gets dry and we have actual real problems with it and stuff. In winter, you got blizzards, you got severe droughts. There's a lot of natural disasters, and just natural occurrences out there that could cause different things. A severe cold in Texas shut down the grid. It got really cold and icy, and wow, I mean, how many people died a few years ago with that? So who would have known that you needed to put oil in Texas in the windmills that froze up, because everybody else does in the United States and in the world, but Texas doesn't because it never gets that cold. So that's in my top three, and then I have some honorable mentions, but I'll yield to Jeremy so he can. I don't want to steal all his thunder either.
Yeah, I have way too much thunder for a short, fat man. I did actually want to touch on a couple of.
That's too funny. Don't say shit like that. That's just too funny.
Well, I am short. I did want to actually touch on a couple of things that you said, buddy, and starting with the first aid because it is so huge. First aid training really does start as a kid. My youngest daughter, she lives in Wyoming. And when she went and got her certification to be a babysitter, she was required to take, your basic CPR and stuff like that. But she actually just had her advanced CPR in high school. So she actually got to do that. And that's really where it starts. If you expose kids to that kind of information, they absorb it like a sponge, and it just it sticks around for quite a while.
How early are they training them for CPR, the kids these days?
Well, my daughter, when she got her certification to be a babysitter, I want to say she was probably around 12 or 13, maybe 11. So that's when she did hers, and I imagine they probably could actually do it earlier because I can remember being in middle school learning CPR, but that was quite a long time ago. I don't know if they do that anymore.
That's why I was asking. I don't know. I think it was middle school, and I think they retouched it again in high school. But that's a long time ago, man. I'm old.
Yeah. I know, like in your health classes and stuff like that, they usually do that kind of stuff. And there was something else that struck me. What you were saying, buddy, is I think that there's a lot of us out there in the world. They call themselves preppers or preparedness or whatever the moniker might be, that really think that if the proverbial S hits the fan, that, we're just going to grab our stuff, disappear in the woods, and we got this. You can't do this alone. I know that you could probably do it alone for a very, very short amount of time, but at some point in time, every human requires some kind of human interaction. And if they don't, I'm not going to say that it's not natural, but we do require stuff. We do require, interaction with other people, and you can't do every single thing every single day all by yourself. You just can't.
I agree with that 100% because I live way out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, very far out in the middle of nowhere. And we basically just have ourselves. So we make it a point to go out and, go to town and interact with people and do all that. Cause you'll get stir crazy, man. If you just sit out in the woods for a while, people think, oh, it's going to be great. I'm going to sit out in the woods and make a fire and I'm going to catch a deer and it's going to be awesome. No, it might be awesome for 3 days. That's about it.
Yeah. It sounds romantic and everything like that in the books and the movies, but honestly, I mean, I actually enjoy sometimes going to Walmart and people watch and being like, man, look at these idiots.
Exactly.
It's like a basic human requirement. You gotta see other humans every once in a while, if anything, just to make fun of them. The last thing on that was working off of probabilities. How you said that, it really did strike me, and that's actually leads to my my number one thing, which would be food and water shortages. And it's starting with water because, of course, the average person can go 3, maybe 4 days without water without running into either a serious problem or death. Um, and a lot of people really do believe, they honestly believe that you can go out there and fill a canteen or a Nalgene bottle from a stream or just anywhere and start chugging and you're going to be great. That's going to kill you even faster.
This is something that the
And
movies do a big injustice to
oh,
people. Movies and TV shows, they see people. I was watching this show this past week. I think it's called Outlast. It's kind of like a survival show where you've got to be part of a team to make it to the end. And
mhm.
this one girl, she leaves her team. She travels 12 miles all the way around this frozen, basically this cold lake to get to another team. While she was doing that, she saw a running stream, had no water, so she drank out of it, and she looked at the cameraman and said, "This is probably a bad idea." And about 3 days later, she was out because she was sick. She was taken out of the show. That's
Yeah,
how fast it happens.
people think that even cold water is safe. It's not. It absolutely is not. And people even think that the stuff that comes out of our tap is completely clean and and free of everything. I don't believe that for one moment because I've seen what actually comes out of filters.
Water is my thing. That's the one thing that
Oh,
that
it's
terrifies
huge.
me is running out of water. I don't think that people these days, I don't think they actually understand past 3 days without drinking water, you start
Hmm.
to die. Your
Hmm.
body starts to shut down and you actually die. You're only 3 days away from death without water.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
And I think it's also because there's so many people these days that don't drink water. They think they're getting water from, their soda or their whatever they drink, but they're not drinking water. Quick story on that one. Many, many years ago, I was in a military school. It was during the winter time. Didn't really feel thirsty. Didn't feel the effects of dehydration. But I got up one morning, went to the latrine, and my urine basically looked like chocolate milk. And it
Is that a
was
kidney thing?
it was definitely a kidney thing. It would just so happen there was a medic buddy of mine passing behind me, and he saw it, and he's like, "Hey man, you seriously need to get some water in your system because it looks to me like you're about to go into renal failure." But I didn't feel it. And man, when I tell you I started drinking water to the point I thought I was going to burst. But it took probably a day and a half to 2 days to actually get back right. So yeah, water's a super huge thing. Food, they say the average human can go 3 to 3.5 weeks without food. I've known people who have gone much, much longer doing intentional fasting. But I think in an emergency situation, trying to fast and like go without, it's a big risk because in any emergency, you're already going to be amped up. Your body's going to be naturally running into overdrive, and you're going to be burning more calories without even realizing it. And you do have to have food. It may not be the most like immediate need for you and your family right then, but you do have to have it.
Your
Um,
physiology changes, your brain function changes when you don't
mhm.
eat food. And you
Yes.
can see this in real time if you watch any of these shows like Alone, where these people will go, days with just maybe a tiny bite of a couple of, like seeds they might find on the ground or a couple of onions.
Mhm.
And they're out there trying to walk a mile or two every day trying to find food. And they're sluggish, they're dragging ass, their brain is not working, they can't concentrate, they can't make decisions properly. Then all of a sudden their brain shuts down and they just sit there and do nothing. And that's how you die.
Yeah, you go into the fog, and
Right.
the only thing you can think about in that moment, even if you had a ton of water, is what in the world am I going to eat? I can remember being in a different military school for 72 days when you're just tired and hungry and you're carrying heavy things. And I would eat onions out of the ground. I would eat whatever I could get my hands on. It really pissed off the instructors, but you do eventually enter into the fog, and when that fog sets in, it's hard to get out of it through anything other than just really getting after the calorie intake. A lot of military people don't even realize this, but I would say a quarter. of the force right now has a form of hypoglycemia, and they don't even realize it. They don't realize it because they have been ingrained into, this is when you eat, you have this much time to eat, and it's scheduled. So you have caloric intake in a scheduled manner. Towards the end of my career in the military, I started having episodes of hypoglycemia, and I realized that I was going into basically what they used to call sugar shakes. And it was because the density of the calories and the kind of calories that I was intaking wasn't what I needed for my body as I aged. So moving beyond that, my second biggest thing is actually it's a combination of a couple of things, and some of it is a little political. It does stem from that, but without getting too deep, there are a lot of people out there who hate those of us who participate heavily in the Second Amendment. And if it were to come to pass that those politicians started coming after our guns and started saying we're going to require mandatory this and mandatory that, the amount of civil unrest that that would create in itself is, in my mind, it's quite startling, because I don't think they realize how much unrest there would be. It would be, I think watching the movie Civil War really kind of put that into my mind even more so. I just don't think that they realize what would happen if they did try to go from house to house and start collecting people's guns. It would be absolutely insane.
It would be a bloodbath.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that they would be smart enough or wise enough, I guess, to realize that this is a really terrible idea, and not do it. But I think that from the outside and in the inside of our country, there are people who are waiting for us, for the right moment, the right amount of weakness, to start conducting internal attacks, which honestly I believe has already been happening for the past several years. And it's been happening in order to create what they've started saying is the new normal. If you normalize, a train falling off the tracks that's full of chemicals, if you normalize ships running into piers and harbors and bridges, it's just like, oh gosh, that happened again. Okay, moving on. If you normalize people destroying electrical grid systems, it just becomes landscape. And that is when we are at our weakest. And I think that's a real danger. And that leads to number 3, which would actually be an EMP attack. I do understand CMEs. I know that we've had them within some recent years. I can't remember the episode it was that you guys did, but it was some time ago where you talked about CMEs. And it just so happened that that particular year, we were at the lake and we actually experienced CME interruptions in cell service where we live here in North Carolina. And I was trying to figure out, what in the world's going on with the phones. I didn't care. I'm retired. My wife had work to do, but we had our good time on the lake anyways. A few days later, everything was fine, and I started going back and looking to see what might have happened, and it turned out that it was actually a CME. So they do happen, and the things that they can interrupt, which might seem benign in the beginning, can turn into serious issues, especially when it comes to communications and things like that. And I know you guys talked about kids and the internet and the phone. My gosh, I can't even. I as a matter of fact, I think that's what the kids say these days. I can't even. The amount of insanity that would come from the children in this world would just be. Ugh, I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We are going into the solar maximum next year. We're heading that direction right now, but I think 2025, 2026 partial is going to be solar maximum. There, we can go into a whole show about it, but we talked about it on that CME show that you just mentioned. The thing is, though, we could see some of these things, and if we see a big one, like a full on straight hit, like a bullseye hit on the Earth from a CME, coronal mass ejection from the sun, we're screwed, man.
Yeah.
I mean, just screwed.
Yeah, and I always go back to my favorite book series, 1 Second After. That of course deals with an intentional EMP, but I think the same, if it was bad enough and it was concentrated enough, I think a CME would have pretty much the same catastrophic offense.
You get an EMP, a nuclear explosion that happens 300 miles over the land, directly over, I think, Terrell, Kansas, which is the direct center of the United States. You take out the entire United States power grid in one shot. Remember what, last year or the year before, we had a Chinese balloon fly right over that damn area.
Uh-huh.
There could have been an EMP on that thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think honestly, and I know it might sound tin hat, but man, I do love a good tin hat theory. I think that is another attempt to make things appear normal. They've tracked those balloons far more often than just last year or the year before or whatever it was.
So you're saying they're not telling us them?
Oh, hell no. No, absolutely not.
Really?
I can just picture a bunch of dudes up in the Appalachia with a couple of jars of moonshine just shooting straight up in the air trying to hit that thing out of the air. I could see that happening. And I mean, somebody in this country is probably ballsy enough to just start sending stuff up, be like, I'm going to shoot that thing down. That I know people who would do that, but I think that the intentional non-disclosure of those kinds of things floating around in our airspace, it's absolutely true. I know it is. But my last one, which is kind of culminating from all of those things, is kind of based off of like essentially where I live. So where I live in North Carolina, we used to be pretty country, but everything came to us. So I live right next to a bar grill. They just built a urgent care clinic right next door to that. I live less than a mile from a Walmart. Our what used to be a 2-lane road became a 4-lane highway. All these different things, and it makes me very concerned about whether or not that I could actually defend my property in the event that things got truly bad. We're kind of open. We live on just a little less than an acre, but my entire front view of the house is nothing but open highway, thousands of cars a day. There's a gas station and all these different things, and I just don't know if I could effectively defend my home, my property, and my family where we sit right now. So that's actually led to me looking for land because honestly, it just makes me, it keeps me up at night. It makes me feel a certain amount of unease knowing how proficient I am at defending things and shooting things. But if it came down to more than what I can handle, I do have concerns about that. With what kind of Buddy was saying, probabilities and things like that, everything that I have seen in these past years leads me to think that a lot of these things are more probability than just happenstance. I really do believe that.
Buddy, was there anything you wanted to talk about?
No, I think he was right over the target on everything right there. Totally agree with everything he was saying. So I don't really have anything to add to what he said, but there's a few other things that I'm concerned about that I'd like to mention real quick.
Let's do it.
All right. So an economic collapse is something that I'm really concerned about. The American dollar just totally losing its value. Inflation, takes things up to where, a piece of gum from 7-Eleven is going to cost, $20. So, that's the kind of thing that I would like, you can't really prepare for that, but you can. I mean, there's things you can do to help, better yourself and better your situation with that by, bartering, things, collecting things to barter, maybe get some gold, silver. There's a few ways you can, kind of wedge those things to where it's not going to be as bad. But, and Jeremy talked about, a little bit earlier about networking, and you're and you can't do it on your own. So it's very wise to to have a network out there where you can trade. You know, you might not have chickens, or you lose your chickens and your neighbor has a few. So, you know, you can trade, you know, you can make soap with from the goat's milk that your goat has, and you can trade for, you know, chicken eggs and maybe some chickens and stuff. So
alcohol and bullets, and your 22 long rifle, 9mm, 7.62, you know, 5.56, 223. All those things are barterable items, and any kind of alcohol.
Oh yeah, and cigarettes and tobacco, any kind of tobacco too. You know, it's not gonna keep forever, but you know, people are gonna start jonesing.
Absolutely.
So, and then along with that, with the economic collapse, supply chain disruptions. You know, we don't want to get into that whole toilet paper panic that we had during the pandemic. So, you know, and along with the supply chain, you know, food, water, medical supplies, and, you know, just everyday, you know, feel good stuff that you might want to start stocking up a little bit on, so your life won't be as bad. You know, you might like, I don't know. I mean, in the medical piece of that, you know, if you do have some medical issues, you know, you can go to places and order, you know, 60, 90 days worth of, you know, your prescription meds, and keep them on hand. And then, you know, it would be a great idea to keep, you know, peroxide, bandages, you know, some ointments, and maybe some Benadryl, some, you know, pain relievers and stuff like that, in a long-term kit where you can go back to them, you know, if you need them. I mean, it's just, and it's also great bartering stuff. As what was that movie with? I forget, but they went in and the kid had some tooth problems, and they needed to go in, and his teeth was kind of falling out, or they were crumbling out of his mouth because of some incident that happened in this grid down situation. So,
you're talking about that new one that just came out where the boat slams into the beach and all that.
Yeah.
And he goes over to Kevin Bacon's house to try and get some medicine or something. And he's like a prepper survivalist.
And he had cash, but I mean, he might as well have had a bottle of, you know, bourbon or something, you know. But so supply chain disruptions is something I'm concerned about, and it's already happened. I mean, honestly, I mean, it's happening as we speak, and it's just going to get worse. And then the last thing would be, without rule of law, like a martial law situation. I think Jeremy talked a little bit about that, or, you know, that's a whole episode all on its own. But,
the movie you were talking about is Leave the World Behind.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. A lot of people criticize that movie. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of political overtones in it, sort of like the movie Civil War. But I thought overall it was a good movie.
I haven't seen Civil War, but I did like the Leave the World Behind. I liked it a lot. There was a lot of political stuff in there, and a little bit of racism and this sort of thing that I was able to overlook because I thought the acting was good, and I liked the premise of it too.
Yeah, I had to go back and watch that one again, and I watched Civil War twice, because I wanted to pick up on some of the nuances that I felt like I had missed. But buddy, you were talking about, you know, trading and those kinds of things, and an economic collapse. I'll tell you how you become a billionaire when stuff really hits the fan. Is you have a fifth of cheap liquor, a carton of GPC cigarettes, and a case of 22 bullets, and I'm going to tell you what, man, you are rich beyond your wildest dreams. Because there's some dude out there who's jonesing for a drink, could use a hit from a cigarette like you don't have any idea, and it would do a lot of stuff to be able to make that happen.
I actually have friends that I'm very concerned about if this, you know, if we get into a grid down situation, because they are alcoholics, man. I mean, I'm worried about them, you know. So
I went down and got just a bunch of cheap alcohol. I think gin, vodka, rum, and just really super cheap. Like we're talking like $7 a bottle, plastic bottles. And I got those for my preps. And I also have, I think I'm up to about 13,000 rounds of 22, and I don't even own a 22. It's all for bartering.
Yeah.
I'd like to own a 22. just never got one, but I've got all those rounds just for bartering.
I love my 22. Absolutely love it.
Well, yeah,
And
and
that-
if you're trying to hunt down small game, yeah, you can do it with a bow or traps. But man, if you got a 22, you're eating food. That's just the way it is. You're eating squirrels. You're eating something.
Yeah. One of my favorite episodes that you guys did was the 5 guns that every prepper needs to have. The 5 guns that every prepper should have. And I actually I take that one to heart because I have each and every one of those different guns.
Funny you say that because that's my favorite episode. Plus, it's also one of, if not the most listened to episode out of all the podcasts.
Just going back to kind of finish up, it's really difficult to say a thing that any one individual prepper or group of preppers is doing to prepare for, because I mean, if you take small bites and small chunks out of I got to do all of this, it does become manageable if you have a plan. But if you just kind of go into it haphazardly thinking, man, I got to buy all this stuff, this is dumb, nothing's ever going to happen. All I got to say is, you look at the pandemic and you saw what happened before the election. They're already talking about it again here coming up.
Did you say pandemic?
I did. That's I didn't
That's
coin
awesome.
that phrase, but I know it's out there in space.
That's
But,
awesome. I love it.
If you don't look at to see what's already happened, if you don't study history, because this isn't new, this is not the first time. There are so many books that were written in the 40s, 50s, and 60s that tell us exactly what is happening to our country, but people don't want to read. They don't want to go back and actually look at what really is going on. And man, I know with as much cheap liquor as I have downstairs and a couple of cartons, which might be mine, and a bunch of 22, I'm going to be rich, man. I'm going to have cheap labor going on all over my yard.
For me, it's always been just the worst case scenario would be, for me, I think would be like a nuclear war, which you can also equate that to a CME or an EMP, all basically the same thing. Basically, what you're talking about is, for me, is 100% grid down, NRL, no rule of law, Tiatwaki, the end of the world as you know it. And that's basically, if you prepare for that, you're going to be fine. Now, I know that's huge. That's a big deal. And it's like you said, taking chunks out of an elephant if you're trying to eat one whole. For me, if you start with the simple thing, the rules of 3 minutes without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. I hope I said that right.
Yeah, you did.
And if you just think of those things, okay, air is your breathing, what you're breathing. What if there are fires? What if there is a contamination? You're going to need some kind of mask. Shelter is very simple. It's your clothing. It doesn't have to be, like building a shelter out in the woods. It's a tarp. It's a cover. It's a blanket. It's whatever. It's
your
shelter
car.
for your body. It's your car. Whatever it is. 3 days without water. We've already talked about that. You can't go past 3 days without water. So sell some tablets, get yourself some filters. Pretty simple, right? 3 weeks without food, start saving food. And it's really as simple as that. And if you stress over it, it becomes a problem. Just start taking little tiny chunks and doing it little at a time, and it's less stressful.
I think that if people really looked at their budget that they spend on BS throughout the month and added a few more cans of this or a few pouches of that and a few different things here and there, set it aside, keep it organized, and check the dates. I mean, man, you're talking about stuff that builds up so much faster than you think. I mean, how many cups of coffee do people drink from the place down the road, the communist place? But how many cups of coffee do they go through in a week, spending $6 to $7 a shot, when they could just make their coffee at home, take the money that they saved, and maybe buy a few more cans of this or that? It's incredible how people justify away not being prepared.
There was a drought in 2 different countries, the 2 top producers for coffee and coffee beans, the most popular coffee beans. And so those prices are going to go up. So keep that in mind.
And I'm going to tell you this about coffee and olive oil. Coffee industry and olive oil industry are run by straight gangsters. That has been happening for decades upon decades upon decades.
Yeah, that's very true. Gangsters. So guys, this was your first show as hosts. I think you guys both did awesome. I'm so happy that you're hosts now for the show. And I think the audience is going to love you guys, and it's going to work out just great.
I think this was a great episode, and I think that expounding upon all of these different things, I think I'm going to have to start doing this with my tinfoil hat on. I'm going to make one with horns. If I'm going to get in the mood to live through the end of the world, I got to get it right.
The last thing I'll say is know what you're prepping for. I mean, a lot of it overlaps. A lot of your preps overlap, but unless you're just independently wealthy and can go out and do all the things and buy all the things and have all the things, chunk it down. Do yourself an area intelligence study, and like you were saying, bite the elephant, in small chunks and not, take a big bite of it. And it's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
It's a lifestyle.
It's lifestyle. Yes, definitely. Yep. And then, just have fun with it too. And don't take it so serious and get stressed out. And the last thing I'll say is go get training. Get training with firearms, get training with first aid, get training with you go out and train on the weekend of how to start a fire. Go out and make, you get your physical fitness level up there to where you can carry that bug out bag that you've got 120 pounds of total shit in there and 18 different ways of starting a fire, because some YouTuber told you to do it. You got to carry all that stuff. So, but don't just be the person that goes out and buys the stuff and doesn't know how to use it.
Right.
Actually take that stuff out and test it and get the training you need. And you got to start now. You can't wait till tomorrow, because I think there's a song out there, tomorrow may never come.
Yeah, and I would just tell you, be prepared to laugh at everything, because the end of the world's probably going to suck. And if you can't laugh, man, you're going to go absolutely crazy.
All right, then, my prepper brothers and sisters, whatever you're prepping for, be it nuclear war, civil unrest, financial collapse, an EMP, or even a CME, what's important is that you get started now, if you haven't already done so. Don't stress about it. Just get started. Those of you who consider yourselves seasoned prepper survivalists and you know who you are, I think I'm one of them. It's time to take your preps to the next level. There are very serious, uncertain times that we're living in right now, and it's an election year, so things may get bad. You ready for that? Stay prepped, stay happy. Thanks for listening, and good night.